verse 6 and 7. ויצא חמור אבי שכם אל יעקב לדבר איתו. So then Chamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Yaakov to speak with him. Verse 7. ובני יעקב באו מן השדה כשומעם ויצבוהו הנשים ויחר להם מאוד. Now the children of Jacob, the sons of Jacob actually, when the sons of Jacob arrived from the field, it's kind of weird. It says when they had heard or how they had heard, right? I'm going to say this is probably meaning because they had heard. The men took their stands. And they were angry. Lahem. And he was Lahem, and he was his anger kindled against them, very much so. Okay. I'm sorry. Vayit atzavu should actually be they were grieved, right? They were grieved. Ki nevalah asa b'Yisrael. Pardon me. Ki nevalah asa b'Yisrael lishkav et bat Yaakov v'chen lo ye'aseh. For a nevalah had been done against Israel. Nevalah is like, well, the word we used before, a loathsome act had been done against Israel. Lishkav, to sleep at bat Yaakov, with the daughter of Yaakov is what it says, right? Because Dinah is the only one. Bat Yaakov, that means the daughter of Yaakov. V'chein lo yaseh, for such is not done. Nifal for you Hebrew students. So the Chamor, the father of Shechem, went out. Again, Sarna points out, he came out, the same verbal stem used for Dinah's action in verse 1. So again, another inclusio, very nice. The second going out is intended to ameliorate the disastrous consequences of the first. By the way, it didn't occur to me, guys, let me know if you would like subtitles on in the future when I teach, because there's a function here. I use it in one of my Hebrew classes. One of the fellows has some hearing issues, and so I turn on the subtitles, and they're pretty good, the automatic subtitles in PowerPoint. So if you want, we can do that in the future. Just let me know. Nevalah, an outrage is how Sarna translates this. I said a loathsome act. Hebrew nevalah is a powerful term describing offenses of such profound abhorrence that they threaten to tear apart the fabric of Israelite society. For society's own self-protection, such atrocities can never be tolerated or left unpunished. Right? This is a nevalah. Everybody with me? Say, meh. Just kidding. Meh. Braying in the spirit. Verse 8. Vadaber Chamor itam lemor Shechem b'nihi hasa chashakaha nafsho b'vitchem tenu na'otaha lo leisha. So then Chamor said with them, is literally what it says, said with them, saying, Shechem, my son, chashaka, he loves, nafsho, his soul loves your daughter. Tenuna, please give otah her, lo to him isha, for a wife. Verse 9. Notice, no confession, no mention of what happened, just saying let them get married. Verse 9. I'm going to look down here, it's bigger here. V'hit chatanu, otan. V'hit chatanu otanu. And let us, it's kind of a weird word. This is really hard to bring into English. It means let us become father-in-laws. Okay? So the idea is I'll become your father-in-law, you'll become mine, right? We're swapping daughters. Okay, like that. Otano, with us. Benotechem titnu lanu, vebenotenu tikechu achem. Your daughters give to us, and our daughters you will take for yourselves. Verse 10. Litanu teshevu, and with us you will live, like dwell, probably. V'haaretz tihyeh lifnechem shavu secharuha v'hiachazu ba. And the land will be before you all. Dwell in it and travel around in it is literally what that says. The idea meaning more like you could do trade, right? And make a possession of it. So on Sachar, this is an interesting word. So this is from my book. The Hebrew word here, Sachar, literally means move around or travel around. Some light is shed by Targum Yonatan, which translates, and dwell with us, and the land shall be before you, to dwell where you please and do business. Right? So the travel around now means do business in it and possess it. So Yonatan to the rescue again. Now for this one, to make a possession of it, Sarna comments, acquire holdings. This is interesting. Good on Sarna again. The last is the most valuable of the privileges offered, even as it is also a subtle and pointed reminder to Jacob of his present alien and disadvantaged position. You see, we miss this in English. The play on words here. So what's happening is Chamor, which is funny, his name almost sounds like the word for donkey in Hebrew. Donkey, Mr. Donkey, is being a little bit arrogant. He's showing his power a little bit, even though it looks like he's being uber generous and all this stuff, right? And he is, but he's hinting subtly by using this word, he achazuba. By saying that word, he's saying, you are a ger, you're a sojourner. You are not an ezrach like me, you're not native born. This is my land. I rule this area, you don't. So I'm being generous, but the subtlety that Sarna points out is he's basically hinting, you better watch yourself, right? And this might just be the threat that cued off Lewi and Shimon, not to justify their action, but it could be. Maybe they understood very well what he's saying, and they said, oh yeah? You're going to threaten us? Preemptive strike, baby. 6-day war, baby. We're going to fly our F-16s close to the Mediterranean Sea, and we're going to destroy your Air Force, Egypt, before you even get to attack. Because you're saying you're going to destroy us, so we're not going to let that happen, right? So you might be able to make a case that the Talmudic dictum that says if you know an enemy is going to kill you, you must kill him first, right? Just to be devil's advocate here a little bit. I don't approve of what Levi and Shimon did, but it's a little bit understandable in light of the language here, right? Again, this is, I think, a great example of what's lost in translation, right? He's doing this nuanced threat, right? This nuanced difference in status. Yes, you have a name and fame, but you don't really live here, do you? You just bought a parcel of land to chill out on from me, right? This is my house. He's like, this is my house, right? Like somebody goes off today, you're up in my house. So that's what's happening. Abarbanel comment. Oh, on the next part. Okay, sorry, too far. Verse 11. Vayomer shechem el aviha velacheha emsachen be'einechem v'asher tomruhu elai etein. So Shechem said to her father, Yaakov, and unto Acheha, her brothers, emsachen. It's weird. He's really saying, I will find favor, right? But he means to say im imsachem or ki imsachem, if I will find favor. Maybe this is a dialect problem again, right? Again, I love how the Bible captures accurately what people say. I think this is just him speaking in the way that their language works. It's close to Hebrew, but a little bit awkward. Syntactically, we understand, if I find favor be'einechem, in your sight, va'asher, Tomaru, then that which you will say, Eli, to me, etain, I will give it. I'll give. In other words, I will pay whatever you tell me, no matter what the dowry my father asks of you, as was the custom in those days. I will give it back to you and more. I want the girl, not the money. Right? So this is Abarmino commenting. Verse 12. Harbu halahai meod mohar umatan v'tana kasher tomaru elai utenu li et hanara leisha. Magnify, like meaning like make large, make it large upon me, make it very large upon me. He's saying, so again, no apology, but he's showing in his speech that he's trying to make up for what happened, right? So harbu means like make it a myriad, make it many times multiple, right? From Rav, make it very large, be'od alai, against me or on top of me, like the burden. Make what large? The mohar. Mohar is the bride price, right? What you pay to the father for the bride. Umatan, and gift. Now we have many words for gift in Hebrew. In context, this is like magdina would be the usual word. So again, it might be his dialect coming out. He's just using generic word gift. In Hebrew, they usually say magdina. Magdina is a gift that's given to a family member of the bride, right? So you don't only give a gift to the father, you don't only give the marital gift to the bride, but gifts in those days, but gifts to the family members also, right? So that everybody's in favor of the marriage is kind of the idea. So bride price and gifts, or to family members. Could even be a hendiatus in their language. Okay? And I will give it, the etena, ka'asher, according to Tomaru, according to as Tomaru you say, Eli, to me. Utenuli, but give me et hana'ara, the last, leisha, for a bride. And now he calls her na'ara instead of yalda. So again, maybe that really was their language, yalda, and now they're speaking Hebrew. Verse 13. ויענו בני יעקב את שכם ואת חמור אביו במימה וידברו אשר תימהי את דינה אחותם. But Jacob's sons answered Shechem and donkey man, Chamor, Aviv, his father, Bemirma, with guile or deceitfully, right? Vaydaberu, and they spoke, Asher Timei et Dina Achotam. They spoke. Okay, Asher can be kind of flexible. Here it means something like because Timei, he had defiled Dina Achotam, their Achot, their sister. Nachmanides comments, ask me a bride price ever so high, as well as gifts. The bride price is the money given to the virgin herself. If her father refuses to give her to him, he must still weigh out silver in accordance with the bride price for virgins, right? So in our law, we have in Exodus 22:16, if a guy rapes a girl, if a guy sleeps with a virgin and he wants to marry her, the father does not have to let them marry, right? Maybe the girl's like, please don't let that beast marry me, right? Okay. But maybe it's consensual. Maybe she wanted to sleep with him, right? Now it's a different situation, right? The father, either way, he gets the bride price, right? So really, it's an act of compassion for his daughter. Sometimes the opponents of the Bible, they'll turn this around and, oh my gosh, look what I've heard idiotic Islamic evangelists make this claim before. I've seen videos of them on Speaker's Corner at Hyde Park in London, and they say like stupid stuff like, what kind of a God is this? He says that first the girl gets raped, and then she has to live with her rapist forever, right? Like, no, that's not what this is. The rapist has, pardon me, not the rapist, right? If it was consensual, the guy who took her virginity has to pay the bride price. He pays the bride price. And then the father investigates the matter. Do you love this guy? Because she's already ruined in those days, right? A non-virgin can't get married, really, or it's a very low bride price, right? So again, I'm not to comment on whatever somebody's situation is today. We live in much more liberal societies now, but in those days, and so maybe she's ruined, right? And so the father's trying to save her life. Do you love this guy? I mean, maybe she didn't want to sleep with him, but maybe she did love him, right? These things can happen, right? Or she said no a little bit too late, right? Things are already happening, and she said no, right? By the way, fellas, no means no, right? So let's just say that it happens like this. So the father can make a determination. Okay, the guy, he didn't run away. He's gonna pay the bride price. Fine, marry her, right? Or she's terrified of the guy. The bride price now is a fine for that guy. He pays the bride price, right? And by the way, he can never divorce her either. If he took this virgin without asking the father, he can never divorce her, right? He has to stay with her forever, right? There's no divorce privilege anymore, right? So continue. That's Exodus 22:16. The engagement presents presents. The gifts are the presents or the gold or silver given to her father and her brothers. The point of offering these gifts was to reconcile all of them to the marriage. For the girl resented being with him and was constantly shrieking and crying. That is also why he spoke to the maiden tenderly, right? This is Nachmanides commenting on that. All right, we're finishing up now, guys. So, as usual, we started a bit late, waiting for people to pile in. By the way, why is it so hard to be on time? I don't understand. Was it the commute? Was the commute was hard? Is it it's hard to make it all the way commuting from your living room to your computer or living room to your tablet or phone? The phone is extra heavy on Shabbat. Oh, I gotta pick up my phone. I never understand why we have commuter issues. All right, fine. I want to read to you from the book of Jacob, chapter 1, verses 19 through 25. So this, of course, is Yaakov. This is Yeshua, the Messiah's brother. All right? And I know the Catholics say that when the word Adelphos is used in the Greek in reference to Yeshua, it just means like religious brother, okay? No. I mean, there's so much context. Your mother and your sisters and brothers out there waiting, because they think the Virgin Mary was a virgin her entire life, right? Because they elevate her to goddess status, right? So this is ludicrous. It's not the plain meaning of the text. And even the wisdom that Yaakov has, you can tell he's been learning from Yeshua his entire life, right? This is Yeshua's half-brother, right? Joseph's son, through Mary, who was no longer a virgin. All right, they're married. There's no righteousness for her to be a virgin, to remain a virgin her whole life. In fact, that would be a theft to her husband, Yosef. Right? It would be unnatural. If someone is called to asexuality, then they should not marry, right? And then torture their spouse by depriving them. This doesn't make any sense. Okay, so Yeshua's brother says, "Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear." Right? And again, in Hebrew, what does hear mean? Shema, right? So quick to hear, he could also be hinting about obedience, right? Slow to speak, slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Again, it says righteousness, but he's thinking in Hebrew, tzedek, right? Tzedek, tzedek, tildof. Justice, or righteousness you shall pursue. Righteousness in Hebrew is the same word as the meaning of justice, right? Because there is no righteousness without justice, i.e., what is justice? Applying the law of God to the life, to the situation, right? So there is no righteousness without applying God's law. There is no righteous person without applying God's law, living in the means defined by the law. Therefore put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word which is able to save your souls. I heard Dr. Jordan Peterson talking about the word meekness. He was talking about it from the Beatitudes, blessed are the meek, right? And he said meekness does not mean like some feeble person without power, right? A meek person is a person who has power, but they control the power, right? They have power, but they control it. You understand? They have an AK-47 in the next room, but they don't shoot the guy who raped the daughter, right? That's meekness. That's an expression of meekness, right? Again, I'm not judging anybody. I would shoot the guy probably, but maybe someday I can be on the level where you wouldn't shoot the guy, right? But if something so lo aleinu, something like this ever happened to anybody who's listening. So meekness is not like some wimp. Meekness is somebody who can kick your butt but chooses not to. You see, that's a meek person. It's about the attitude, not about the state of lack of power. They have power, but they elect to not use the power. So instead of being quick to anger, be slow to anger. Don't use your power. Don't get the revenge. With meekness, choosing to subdue our own egos, the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. Verse 22, but be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. Love the book of Jacob, the book of James. Is it any wonder why the wicked Martin Luther tried to delete this book from the Bible, right? In his spiritual insight? It's because Luther in his wickedness was a greasy grace guy, right? This is why Protestants today love him so much. Ignore the anti-Semitic murderous side of him, right? We'll ignore that. Ignore his works that happened later in life. Right? There's something ironic. If you talk to a Christian about Luther, usually they're very defensive of him and he's so great, and then they'll pick some part where he talks positively about the Jews, right? Not realizing this was earlier in life. He hoped that the Jews would ally against Roman Catholics with him, right? But instead, Jews were like, this is not our fight. You Christians do your stuff, right? They don't want to have anything to do with it. And so later in life, when he's older and wise, this is when he starts murdering Jews and having them kicked out of Saxony in the middle of the winter. All Jews kicked out in the middle of winter. I mean, this is a time pre-electricity, okay? So yeah, people died, children died, babies died. You got a few days to sell your house and get out of winter Germany. Yeah, so it's not all about grace. Grace is not greasy. Grace is connected to something. And Yeshua's brother in the book that the father of the Protestants wanted to delete from the Bible, and in Der Luther Bibel, he writes, the guy who paid his paycheck made him keep this book in the Bible. That's why we have it. Could you imagine if the Nachash had succeeded through his servant, the devil's servant, Martin Luther, in deleting the book of Jacob, the book of James, and he wanted to delete Revelation, book of Revelation, and the book of Hebrews. All three books he considered not divinely inspired, and he wanted them out of the Bible. But the guy who paid his bills, Frederick II, the electorate of Saxony, said, no, you're not going to delete that, or I'm not going to pay you anymore. You have to find somebody else to cover your bills. And so he kept it in there because, strong spiritual principles. If the guy who gives you money tells you that should be Bible, then that's Bible, not because you think it shouldn't be, right? This is the sign of a guy who should be the leader of all of Protestantism, right? And so Jacob survived. But Luther, in his Bible, in the preface, he writes the book of James, the book in German, Yaakov, the book of Yaakov, and Revelation, and Hebrews, I do not believe are on the level of Scripture, right? He wanted them out there because they're problematic. Because James doesn't believe in greasy grace. If you've ever read James, in fact, you cannot read James seriously, Jacob seriously, and maintain a position of once saved, always saved. Okay? You cannot read it and think that it's okay to not keep the Torah. You cannot read it seriously and think it's okay to not do works, right? To not need to do works. Because what does he say? Be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. If you think that you don't have to do anything, if you think that every Christian is saved because they said, Lord, Lord, oh, Lord, 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 you're deceiving yourself. You're deceiving yourself. Verse 23, for if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in a mirror. For he looks at himself and goes away and at once forgets what he was like. but the one who looks into the perfect law. In case you were wondering what he meant by being a doer, here it is, the perfect law. And now he refers to Proverbs, which refers to the law as Torah Chesed, the law of loving kindness, or here it's translated the law of liberty, right? That's the same law. This is not some, as the Gentiles imagine, some separate law that Jacob is abstracting a new law out there. There's some new thing, and he's imagining it, and that's what he's talking about. There's another law over here, and this is the law that I'm talking about. No, he's talking about the Torah. Come on. It's clear. The perfect law. He's not the only one who calls it perfect. Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul, calls it the perfect law. The law is perfect, just, and true, Paul says. Jacob is no different. He calls the law, the Torah, perfect. So the one who looks into the perfect law, this is the doer of the law, right? The one who's not deceiving himself. You understand? If you are not looking into the Torah, you're deceiving yourself. If you're just hearing the word and not doing his law, you're deceiving yourself. The one who looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and perseveres, being no hearer who forgets, but a doer who does and acts, he will be blessed in his doing. That's from the ESV translation. The book of Jacob, or James as it's mistranslated because of Gentile tradition, chapter 1, verses 19 through 25, because, we need to minimize any good Jewish thing, so it doesn't look like the Jews are too good. We can say synagogue of Satan, but we can't say synagogue of true believers, right? Even though it's the same word in the Greek. Right? You gotta hit the Jews, follow that Martin Luther tradition, right? Even with the name of the Bible, we can't have this book in the New Testament named with a Jewish name. We got to call it James instead of Jacob. So the connection here is slow to anger, because I was thinking about this series of verses came to mind. I was thinking about how amazing our ancestor Jacob is. I mean, could you think of a situation, fathers, that you would be more angry about than your only daughter being raped by some schmuck, some non-believer, even pagan? Not that it's better to be raped by a Torah keeper, but rape is rape, a violent and terrible thing. But is there anything that would make you madder? I cannot imagine. And the person is in your face. Hey, can I marry her? Look, you can marry our daughters too. It's just like, are you kidding me? I would end that man. Right? Again, not saying that's the righteous thing to do, but we're all down here on level compared to Yaakov where he was at. And so, talk about being slow to anger. And he knew himself. He knew that if he spoke, it might cause an altercation, right? We saw this reading the commentaries. He knew that if he spoke, that might be the end. So what's he do? More advice that Jacob, we had last time. We were reading about how to control the tongue, right? How to control our speech. Yaakov is a Baal Lashon. And here we see another example of it. He doesn't engage with these Rashaim because he knows himself. Instead, he needs his sons to be the buffer, right? Let them come and be there. Get some support. If you're in the situation where there's a dynamic happening and you think you might lose your cool, get some support. Get your more cool-headed family members involved. Get some help from them. It's okay to lean on them. And this is why he's leaning on his sons. He's not abdicating his responsibility, but he's leaning on them so that, one, he's got some time to cool down, and two, it's going to take a little bit for them to come in from the field. Again, it's a big place. So that was the connection, to be slow to anger. I think we can all work on this. You guys already know about being doers and not just hearers only. That's just icing on the cake. But this particular midah, this character trait of, in Hebrew it's called, in biblical Hebrew it's called apayim, apayim, which is often translated in older English as long suffering. If you've ever heard that, long suffering, it means slow to anger. Long suffering, apayim, is off, the nose. The nose is often used to symbolize anger in Hebrew. When the nose gets big, the nostrils flare, right? When the nose gets hot. So apayim. Pardon me, yeah. Or or chaim, pardon me, yeah. So it's like long nosed is literally what it means. Verse 11. Mattityahu chapter 5. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. And this blessed, this is from ashrei. In Greek it's makaroi, right? Blessed, blessed in the plural, right? So really it means blessed ones, like blessed ones are you all. But the Makaroi maps back to Septuagint into Hebrew as ashrei, right? That's the Psalm 1 thing, right? So we have the two types of blessings. The one from barach, which is finances or land or progeny, like having children, right? Very physical blessings that you can touch. When God says he's going to barach us, that's what he means, right? Those things. It's not good feelings. It's not, oh, I'm so happy, I'm blessed, right? I'm so blessed. The ashrei, this is the one that Yeshua was talking about. The ashrei is that you will have good midot. You'll have good feelings as well. You'll be at peace. You'll have contentment, right? So really, when these things are happening, this is the ideal that Yeshua the Messiah is calling us to. Like his brother says, don't be quick to anger. And Yeshua is taking it a step further. He's even saying, be blessed. Makaroi, Ashrei, you are blessed when these things happen. When people are trying to make us angry, they're doing stuff that should make us angry, and we're able to get to that next level. And it takes time, right? It takes time, step by step. We're slowly getting there where we don't have a response of revenge or absolute anger. So I think the big takeaway from today's Torah portion is about hedges, having hedges to protect our families. Dinah was desperately eager to get away from her family, right? And you know what it's like? Big family and the only girl, can you imagine? But why was Dinah allowed to go out and meet daughters of the land in the first place? Why was she allowed? Did she have to sneak out? There should have been a hedge to prevent this, right? For her own safety. You're in a foreign country now. How can you make hedges to defend your family? Is there something, if you're a parent, or if you're an older sibling for your younger siblings, or if you're a grandparent or whatever, if there's some younger beings in your care, are there some hedges you can make for them, or even your pets, to defend them from the evil that lurks in this world? Second lesson, I think, is that anger must be mastered, as its consequences are sometimes irreversible. Right? Look what Shimon and Levi did. They wiped out the entire village, all the men. They killed all the men, and then they took the ladies, right, and made them part of Israel. Don't you think there was some resentment in there from women who had their husbands killed? You think that was actually great? I mean, there was a possibility to join these people, for them to truly convert, to really win them over, right? Because of the actions of this one wicked guy. But instead, all the men get wiped out. And then there's bitterness with all the people. The children who lost their fathers, the women who lost their husbands. This is what the God of Israel is about? Revenge for people on this level? Dinah is alive, but yet all the men had to die? Some consequences of anger are not reversible. We have to have a hold on this. We should, and our ideal should be to be like Yaakov Avinu. He knew when to hold his tongue. And I'm not talking down to anybody. When people get me ticked off enough, I'm ready to say something. We're working on this, right? Wrestling with ourselves, trying to be better tomorrow than we are today. How can you hedge your response to anger? What exercises can you do? What exercises can you do? Mental exercises throughout the week. If you have an anger issue, or even if you don't, but you'd like to be better, you want to have the chasidus to be better. Think about what can you do. What's an actual response and some kind of massive action you can take in your life to hedge yourself for this, to improve your own personality trait. And finally, how in the world do we bless those who persecute you? How do we bless them? What does that even mean, to bless those who persecute us? How can we do that in our own lives? What are some actions you could take today to follow the Messiah more perfectly, to be a better doer of the word? And if you're someone listening to this, Josh, listening to this teaching, the shiur, and you are not a Torah keeper, if you are a lawless person, if you're somebody who doesn't keep the Sabbath day, or you're someone who eats pork, or you're somebody who, sleeps with his spouse during the menstrual cycle, or you're somebody who breaks any of the other hundreds of commandments that we have from our Lord and God to keep us safe and to keep us spiritually attuned, then I challenge you to change your life. Become doers of the perfect Torah, not just hearers. Join the sons and daughters of Israel. You can be Israel. Being Israel, being grafted in, means joining us through becoming good citizens in the kingdom. And a good citizen follows the rules of the kingdom. אבינו מלכנו, תודה לך לכל אשר שומעים את קולי עכשיו. כן יהי רצון, אדוני, אם יש עמים אשר לא שומעים בקולך, אדוני, תיגע נא את לבבם, אדוני, גם עכשיו, תיגע נא אותם, ותעזר גם אותנו לדעת מה לעשות, כי רב עמים יהיו תלמידיך, אדוני, כי אנחנו רוצים לחיות פועלי תורתך, ולא רק שומעי תורתך. וכל הדברים האלה אנחנו נברכך בזכות ישוע המשיח. So I was just praying that the Lord would help us that He would touch the people's hearts, anyone who's listening who is a law violator, that He would bring them back to His Torah, and that also He would help all of us with outreach, that we can reach those who are living in sin, who are living in darkness, that we might bring them back to a more perfect way, which is walking in His Torah as doers and not hearers only. And for all those things, we gave praise and thanks by the merit of Yeshua, the Messiah. Shavua Tov, you guys have a great week. And we will see. We might not have Hebrew class tomorrow, the intermediate 3 class. Okay. Shavua Tov.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi. Shabbat Tov. Thank you very much, Rabbi. Thank you very much.
God bless.
Thank you.
Make sure to count the Omer. All right.
Hey, you made it to the end of this part of the Drash. Mazel tov. Watch the next one. Please remember to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you like the content. Donations may be sent to patreon.com/Hebrew literacy. And as always, Kol Kavod Ladonai, all glory